I mean, so we're talking shopping list, right? You're creating a shopping list. I mean, most people are unsure of what to invest in these days, obviously, because they see the multiples, but then they also see how the sell-offs, and maybe they hear about how Bitcoin and Ethereum is just the safe bets. But going outside of those two picks, how are you looking at your shopping list and just ultimately maybe choosing between the multiple layer ones that do exist and what will be here in 5 years and maybe what sets them apart from each other?
Yeah. So you really got to look at a multi-factor analysis of the projects that you could potentially buy. They've got to have great technology, first of all. So if you're not technical, you need to have somebody you can talk to that's technical, that can look at this, they can look at the code, they can look at the design and say, yeah, this is a feat of engineering. This is something unique that somebody can't just whip up in a day. And it does actually solve a problem with this innovation. And so that's going to be the cornerstone of your thesis. If it doesn't have that, nothing's going to work. You can't just have a great community but not have any technical innovation, right? Like, you've got to have that. But then once you have the technical innovation, you do have to have a few other things. You have to have a great team behind it. So who are the leaders of this project? There's a couple other DeFi leaders out there that you can look to. So you want people like that are leading this project, that really have invested their entire life into this thing, and they are not going to stop until something forces them to. And that is going to give these projects longevity. Then you also have to look at the rest of the team. Do they have quality developers? Do they have community managers, marketing people, lawyers, right? You got to make sure that they have the full gamut in this. If it's a DAO, the same thing applies. You got to make sure there's people in the DAO that are there for the long term and they're filling these roles and they're doing that well. And actually, if it's a DAO, it's a little bit easier because all of that is out in the open. You can just go on the Discord, you can go on GitHub, and you can see everything that's happening. Then you also want to see that there's a treasury behind this project, that they've either raised money and they've got that in the bank, or it's a DAO treasury and it's just sitting there on chain, and maybe they're sitting in some USDC getting yield or something like that. But you want to make sure that they've got a sizable war chest, that they've got at least a couple years of runway to continue to fund developers, because look, developers, as we all know, it's very expensive in Web3. So they got to make sure that they have enough funds for that. And then the last piece is going to be that they've got a flywheel of community engagement building, because in crypto, there's not really such a thing as a moat, right? And if the code's open source and the white paper and everything like that, all of that is out in the open. Someone can just copy that. I mean, right? That's how Tron came into existence. You also want to look at, do they have an active Discord, right? If their Discord is popping, that's a good sign, because that means like people are coming and hanging out. Is there barely anything going on in the Discord? That's not a good sign. If they have a DAO, are there a lot of votes going on, and is there active participation in the voting? That's good, because that's going to give you that more decentralized leadership and more ideas coming into the future of this project, as opposed to, say, just a handful of whales controlling everything. With those three, the innovation, the innovation, the team, the community flywheel, and the treasury. That's really how I evaluate the projects. And so you want to basically, as you're going through crypto, Twitter, Reddit, whatever news sources you're looking at, just start to make note of projects that interest you. And then once you've got 10 to 20 projects, start to actually do diligence on them and look into all these details. And the ones that bubble up to the top, that's where you're going to want to concentrate your portfolio and start to nibble over the next 12 months.
How do you form a standpoint, or how do you look at answering the question if a token is really needed in the project? A lot of people recently, or at least I see a few different tweets, how people are kind of going about that. Project launches a token, the VCs are in early, they create a market and ultimately sell that. The founders also make money and the project's built, and then the token, declines over a period of time. And they're starting to question the ability, if some of these tokens are really needed on these projects. At the end of the day, they're just maybe software services that where the token is not integrated.
You need to look at the tokenomics and the economic mechanism that drives this project, and see if this token really serves a utility, right? Would this project not work without a token, or would it be hampered in some way? For the most part, you want to make sure that this token gives you some sort of voting rights in the DAO, and that it also gives you some sort of cash flow directly or maybe indirectly through like a buy and burn mechanism. For example, Ether technically has cash flow because people that are paying transaction fees, that ether is getting burned. And so that is decreasing the supply of ether. And it's basically economically the same as if they just gave you revenue, but with less of a tax burden. You want to make sure that there's some sort of revenue flow, directly or indirectly, and that there is some sort of governance attached to this token.